Famous journal for the tourist experience introduces us or explore us as a mostly tasty destination. And I like to welcome all of you to come in our country and to taste the most tasty destination in the future. I like to start with our explanation of our table, just to know that if you are our guests, in the beginning of every meal, we start with something which we call meze. Meze means something like this. We put the cheese, little bread, some kind of meat, everything. We never start with wine. In our tradition, the meze, we always started with some kind of rakia, that is snacks. The wine is after the rakia, because we are coming from Balkan. Balkan means the combination with honey and blood. And our together the sweet and also the strong person, and we started with rakia. We will start with the wines. Probably Peter would like to explain our wines. Yes, if I would help in something which he.
I talk to Macedonian language because I like to sing.
We will start with the first one, Pinot Noir, which is not our common sort, a variety. It's a worldwide variety, but because it's very famous, we started to produce in our country.
Характеристично е то, што кај нас Pinot Noir го прави по-вкусен, по-овошен.
The fruit taste is a much raised rich
Малце
taste.
богат со танини, што не е характеристично кај Pinot Noir.
Yes, our soil is very rich in minerals, and that means that minerals going into the plant, and our wines is very rich in tannins. Tannins is very important components which make the wine to keep more longer. If the wine contains the tannins, that means that if you drink that wine after 5 years or 10 years, will be more better than in the beginning. That is not for white wines. This is just importance for the red wine wines with very high quantity of tannins. That the same is Pinot Noir and the Vranic.
Барикираме 3
месеца,
барик, затоа е максимум за Pinot Noir да се.
You know that is the small barrels which make from the very good wood, very good and very expensive. And that is very expensive procedure of production of barrique wines, because in 1 year barrique, after that the barrique can go out, and we need to replace the new barrique to keep the dead taste with barrique with some kind of smoke, like honey, water, mushrooms, everything combination with the very rich complex of the wine makes something special. Bouquet. We call bouquet, but that is the name of final feelings in our mouth.
Okay, that's what.
Yes, and that's Pinot Noir.
Yes. Next is the Vranic. Typical.
I mentioned in the beginning about the Vranic, and you can mention that is Tagazayuk, that is sage for the soul. That is the label of one very famous song, writing by one very famous poetry, who was out of our country, so far our country, and he felt very big sage for the country and made the sage for the soul. That is the very famous song. That is sweet, semi-sweet wine with the Vranic. That is typical Vranic, as I told you. We keep as our aftertonic sort, but Montenegro unfortunately take as a aftertonic and protected. We don't have now opportunity to protect this kind, but we feel like ours because Vranic is like a Balkan, honey and blood, the combination. And we drink this very strong with a very rich tannins, and always going good with the meat, like beef meat, red meat, good prepared fatty meat, you understand? And also the very old fermented cheeses. You taste one, this is one of this, and very good combination. The Vranic with this kind of cheese, or some kind of red meat, but good prepared with little fat during the winter period. This is the white variety, Traminets. It's very fruity and very fresh. Fruity and fresh.
Потекло от Германия. За
The
разлика от
origin is from
Германия,
Germany.
Вайна се по-сладка арома,
The-
по-сладки вкусове.
Also,
да
the
се най-
aroma is
разлика от
the
цитрусите,
bigger
що се
sweeter
казва.
and much sweeter than the German because the sort originally coming from the Germany. But our country, you know, usually in the past we have some Smederevka. That was typical for our country, but now they find that it's poor. Don't like people a lot of Smederevka, and all of that plants we threw out and replaced with this kind of new modern sort of. That is also like a starter wine. Started because very fresh and very fruity, and we usually started with some kind of young cheeses. With combination in the beginning, and after that we're going with the rose wine and finishing with probably the Vranes in the end. That is about the. I told you that Stanushina is our afterthought sort, and we have that is rose wine. But now we produce the white wine, and we call Macedonian Girl. That is very famous, delicious wine. But unfortunately, we don't have possibility. But that means that you'll come in Macedonia and taste our Macedonian Girl. That is for the wines. Now we're going to the cheese.
Окей, може да стартуваме с нашето познато.
In Macedonia, just for information, we didn't produce a lot of very old fermented cheese. We're very famous for white, soft, young cheeses. And they are of the high acid and is not very good combination with the wine, but the new producers now found some kind of solution to decrease the acids in the cheese and to make them more compatible or more pairing with the wines. We'll start with the first one, that is
Стартуваме с нашето познато, после
Ajde, kaži.
Со кораб кашка.
Korab kashko. We will start the most famous korab cheese. That is production, just to say, that is production like a cheddar procedure. But you know, the difference between the white one is that it's just a fermentation. With this one, the dough going after the hot water, everything prepared with the hands and make a good form. That is the difference between the white cheese and the yellow cheese with cheddar procedure of production.
Характеристично за той кашкавал е стан, мислам, зрян 2 години, но характеристично е затоа што овците пасат над 2,5 мм надморска, пасат само треба да пият вода и тоа се добива.
That is sheep origin, значи the milk is from the sheep, and the sheep's feet on a very high in the mountains on 2,000 and mountains describe 2,500 meters, and just that area is very clean and very healthy, and this quality is top, the best quality because contain just natural components, no additives, no some kind of chemical, nothing, just natural chemicals.
Папката на топлотука на тој кашкавал е доста стар рецепт.
That is very old recipe with a very big tradition and long tradition.
Затоа што зрењето во постапки, значи се зрее дел кога има сонце, се измислува на сонце, за да
This is the
поприми.
fermentation going through the few steps. In the first steps, the cheese going on the sun, because the temperature will increase the fermentation in the cheese, and after that the cheese going back to the dry space in a cold temperature, because to make some kind of fermentation and some kind of aromas to be balanced. After that, the process of repeating with going on putting this kind of cheese on the sun, back to the dry, and that is a 2 years procedure of maturation processes. And I need to say about this cheese was founded in the Titanic boat. And you can imagine 150,000 kilos of this cheese was on Titanic. That was the trip to one of that trip, but the famous trip is that cheese was brought to England, because the most richest people in the England like to buy this kind of cheese. After this, I told you that the most famous was the white cheeses, because that is normal procedure, like we saw yesterday or before yesterday in that factory. This is the new cheese, sheep sheep cheese with some kind of additional spices like sparkly,
Parsley.
Parsley, yes, parsley, imagina and valti. And valti that is not typical for our previous production, but it's new trend in the world to put some kind of spices because you know the spices is very important. You know that in Egypt the spices have been used to mummification of the body. They keep the fats very in a good stabilized situation and not going that cheese to be spoiled. That is very important, and also the taste is more complex. Very interesting is this. Okay, you try taste later. This is we call beaten cheese. Like and that means that usually have been we producing in a poor area because before the milk the fats going out and the rest are used as some kind of substance to produce this kind of beaten cheese, and it's with a high quantity of salt because in that poor areas people don't need to eat a lot of cheese, just to eat but a small salted cheese, you know, and from the one milk to produce butter and from the rest to produce that cheese to eat, to have all the year something to eat. This is goat cheese. As he told, very healthy because the proteins of that cheese is very similar to the proteins of our body, goats, and also the and the goat's going to feed on a very healthy and very clean areas. They are very typical animals who like to just to taste and to eat just healthy plants, and that is also very healthy as the first one I mentioned, healthy products. This is mixed yes. This is a combination between cow milk and sheep milk, and it's like a young cheddar cheese. It's not typical normal and cow cheese. After that, I like to introduce these products. This is very new products. This is the pasta from walnuts. Walnuts, yes. Walnuts, yes. That is the butter of walnuts.
Like the butter of peanuts? No, this is from walnuts.
Yes.
Homemade, organic.
Yes, and this is very important as nutrition from a nutritional side, because you know that walnuts are very good for our body, especially for our mind, because they contain something which is omega-3 unsaturated fatty, and our mind is contained from more than 60% of this kind of fatty acids. And this is very interesting products, and also according to fats, they contain some kind of dietal like a cellulose, you understand, and very good minerals. And this is one spoon very important every day to keep our body healthy. That is from Macedonia. Welcome to Macedonia.